Most books fail because they don't follow the fundamentals. What if I told you that there's 7 fundamentals of a bestseller? If you do not follow these 7 fundamentals, you will not sell books. But on the other hand, if you do follow them, you're going to set your book up for maximum success. I've published thousands of books through my company, selfpublishing.com, and we've refined these fundamentals to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Without these fundamentals, you're just pouring water into a leaky bucket, right? Nothing I can teach you about marketing is gonna work if you don't nail these 7 things. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through why they matter, what are they, and how you can implement them in your book. In high school, I decided to take up 2 sports. The first sport was golf. In the 9th grade, I remember playing golf. I'm in this country town in the middle of nowhere on the golf team. My coach could not care less that I was there. He had his number 1 guy who was the number 1 golf guy, and he spent all of his time with him. So I didn't get any coaching. I didn't really get any better, and I gave up. But then in 10th grade, I decided to take up tennis. All right, and I remember the first time stepping out on the tennis court, and I remember going to this clinic, and it was all, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, people way younger than me. I'm a sophomore in high school. And I remember just getting my butt kicked by an 8-year-old, getting absolutely demolished by an 8-year-old. And I remember learning a couple things in that day. All right, number 1, I learned that tennis is a game of fundamentals. And if you don't know the fundamentals, you can't win the game. And it doesn't matter if you're faster, if you're smarter, if you're more athletic, any of those things. You don't know the fundamentals, you can't win the game, right? And what I also learned is that I needed to get a coach. Why was that 8-year-old good? Well, because he had a coach for years. Right? He could barely hold a racket, but he's kicking my butt on the tennis court. And so I remember my tennis coach teaching me these fundamentals. He said, hey, stay on your toes, watch the ball, swing through. Stay on your toes, watch the ball, swing through. And it was in those fundamentals that I got really good at tennis. And so over the next year or 2, I got way better at tennis. I became the number 1 seed on our tennis team. I started competing in tournaments, all this stuff, because I got a coach and because I learned the fundamentals. So to recap, here are the 2 lessons that I learned and why the fundamentals matter. Number 1, if you don't know the fundamentals, you're pouring water into a leaky bucket. It doesn't matter how hard you work. So nothing else that I teach you on marketing, no promo, no anything like that, it's not gonna work if your book doesn't follow the fundamentals. Now, it might work for a little bit, right? You might have a good launch week, but in terms of having a timeless, perennial bestseller, it won't happen if you don't follow the fundamentals, right? And then the second lesson that I learned is the most expensive mistake that you can make is not getting a coach. And one of my favorite phrases is who, not how. Anytime I run into a problem in my life or in my business, I ask the question, who has solved this before, not how do I solve it? Now, obviously you've decided to work with us. You've asked the who question, not the how question. So now let's get into those 7 fundamentals. These are the 7 fundamentals that are going to help set your book up for maximum success moving forward as you implement our marketing and launch strategies. Number 1, your book solves a real reader problem. Now, you may remember the 4 P's of a best-selling book: person, pain, promise, and price. Right, we really want to think about those first 3. Who's the person that you're writing this for? And remember, you want to think of someone specifically that you know and write to that person. Then what's the pain that they have that they know that they have? I'll come back to that. All right. And then what's a promise that you can make, a compelling promise that you can make with this book? Okay, so the 2 questions that you want to ask here is, does my book solve a real problem? And is it a problem that they know that they have? Because if you solve the problem that they don't know that they have, well, if a tree falls in the woods, no one hears it, does it actually make a sound, right? They don't care. So let me give you an example of this. So let's say, for example, I've got back pain. I wake up every day, I've got this back pain, it won't go away, it drives me crazy. And maybe you've heard the saying, it's easier to sell pain pills than it is to sell vitamins. Because a lot of people wake up in the morning and say, oh my gosh, I've got this pain. They reach for some sort of pain medicine, generic medicine, doesn't matter. But not many people wake up and say, I can't wait to have my vitamins today, right? So that's a lesson within a lesson of you got to focus on the pain. The pain is the problem, but then is it a problem that they know that they have? So I wake up, I got back pain, and I'm looking for a solution to that back pain. The problem is actually I've got bad posture, and I also sit on my wallet, right? So I'm sitting on my wallet, I got bad posture. That's actually why I have bad back pain. But I don't know that. That's not a problem that I know that I have. So if I'm a chiropractor, let's say, and I write a book on posture, you think I'm gonna buy that book? No. It's solving a problem that I don't know that I have. If I'm a chiropractor and I write a book on back pain, and within that book, I talk about better posture, do you think that's a book that I'm going to be interested? 100%. So there's levels of market sophistication as an author where a lot of times your understanding is way greater than your reader. And so you're trying to market and teach them to solve the problems that they don't even know that they have. So we need to say, what is the problem that they know that they have? And let's solve that problem. And then there's what I call chocolate covered broccoli. All right. That's where, you hold out the chocolate covered broccoli and they're interested in the chocolate. Okay. That's the solution to the problem that they know that they have, but then the broccoli's inside. And so this is all about the packaging of the book, but then sure, what's underneath? Is there substance that's solving the problem? So a lot of times people hear this and they say, well, hold up, I have to change my whole book. No, you just might have to change the angle and the packaging of that book. Number 2, it's quality, timeless content. Okay, so I'm going to make a few assumptions here. These are boxes that you have to check. The book needs to be well written. It needs to be well formatted. We always say that your self-published book shouldn't look self-published. So it doesn't matter if you self-publish, if you traditionally publish, it needs to be quality. It needs to be something that is helpful, is valuable, and is timeless. So when it comes to the timeless part, I like to think strategies over tactics. So if you think about my book, for example, published, well, in that book, I could teach a lot of tactical things about Amazon, the algorithm, all this stuff. But guess what? A year from now, 2 years from now, this can be outdated. So instead, what I did and what I chose to focus on in this book is strategies. And so when you think about that for your book, for your business, for what you're writing about, teach strategies, not tactics, because tactics get outdated. And that means it dates the book. That means it's no longer helpful. That means a year from now, a decade from now, it's not going to keep selling. And that's what we want, right? We want to, that's the whole point of these fundamentals, is to set your book up to sell long term. Number 3, a compelling and clear cover. So there's a few questions that I want to ask here. So if you got a good cover, and we got whole lessons and videos and breakdowns and stuff on that, but your cover, it needs to grab attention. You don't want to think about your cover as a billboard for your book. So does it grab attention? That's number 1. Is the title easy to read? And thirdly, does your prospect or potential customer or reader or whatever, do they instantly understand what the book's about and whether or not it's for them? So you need a compelling and clear cover. Now within that, there's a clear acronym that we teach. The C stands for complementary colors, right? So there's contrast between the title, the cover, etc. L stands for lower author name. Okay, so your author name should be at the bottom, not at the top. Because unless you're Tony Robbins or Oprah or somebody, who cares? Right? I want to know the title, the subtitle. Will it help me? And then, oh, by the way, here's that person. Here's that author. And then the E stands for easy to read font. If you've got some kind of complex image and weird texture and I can't read the title, well, then I don't know what the book's about. The A stands for appealing image. This is a simple image. It doesn't take up the whole cover. It doesn't distract from the title, but it gets the message across. Again, it helps people understand what the book's about, whether or not it's for them. And then the R stands for rule of thirds. All right, so we like to think about title at the top, image, subtitle in the middle, name at the bottom. So are you following that framework for a compelling and clear cover? Number 4, you've got a book description or back cover that converts. So I like to say, people will click into your Amazon listing or they'll pick up your book and either they're going to look at it for 15 seconds and leave, or they're going to stay for a couple minutes and buy. So the job of your book description, if you're thinking like your online listing, you need a listing that converts. Or the job of your back cover is to keep people reading and keep people learning more. There's a framework that I love by a guy named Joe Sugarman called the slippery slide. And this whole framework is around how the job of the title or the headline in an article is to get you to read the subtitle. The job of the subtitle is to get you to read the first line. The job of the first line is to get you to read the second line. And then before you know it, you're slipping and sliding all the way to the end of that sales letter and you're purchasing the thing that is marketed in that sales letter, right? Well, the same thing applies to your book. The job of the title is to get you to read the subtitle. The job of the subtitle and the cover is to get you to either open up and look at the front or maybe flip around the book or go to the book description if you're online and read that first sentence. Well, now the job of that first sentence is to evoke emotion or interest, intrigue, curiosity, right? And so a good book description, it grabs attention right at the start and then it keeps attention throughout with a direct call to action, right? Buy this book if it's on the listing, read this book and watch your life change, or read this book and you'll get these 3 benefits, that type of thing, right? So does your book description give them that final nudge to purchase your book? Number 5, do you have more than 100 reviews on your book on all formats. So there's this really fundamental principle of marketing. It's called social proof. It's in a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I think it's one of the best marketing books of all time. And it's one of the most important principles of marketing. So social proof, you've seen it everywhere. You've been influenced. It's one of the silent influencers that has dictated probably a lot of your life and you might not even know it. Social proof says that I'm more likely to do something that other people are doing. Simple concept, right? Well, this is why reviews matter. I want you to think for a second, you're in a new city. Let's pretend that Yelp doesn't exist or anything like that. And I'm walking down the city center and I look on the left-hand side. This looks like an interesting restaurant. It's packed. There's a line. There's probably going to be a wait. And look on the right-hand side. This also looks like a really good restaurant. There's no one in it. Which restaurant are you going to? You're going to the packed restaurant, which seems counterintuitive, right? It's like, well, hold up, I'm gonna have to wait. But subconsciously, you think to yourself, people must know something that I don't. Right? I don't know if somebody got food poisoning in that restaurant or what. I gotta go there because other people know something I don't. That's social proof at work. I don't know about you, but I've been recommended books before. There's one time I got recommended this book like 3 or 4 times, but it had 10 reviews on Amazon. And I'm really picky about my books that I read and my time and how I spend it and all that stuff. I said, hey, I'm not reading this. And finally it took someone saying, hey, you need to read it. And I said, well, you're willing to put your name on the line and your reputation on the line? Because so I'll read it. And they said, yes, it's that good. And then I read that book. It changed my life. It's one of the best books I ever read, but I wouldn't have read it if I didn't have such a strong recommendation because the book didn't have social proof. And so if you're browsing on Amazon and you've ever not purchased a book because it doesn't have reviews, well, guess what? If you don't have reviews on your book, that exact same thing is happening to you. Right? And if you're running ads, if you're doing marketing, whatever, your book's not going to sell as well because when you've done all this work to get them on the page for your book, and then they're not going to buy it because it doesn't have reviews. So do you have a minimum of 100 reviews on every single format? So on your print book, on your ebook, on your audiobook? If so, you're going to sell a lot more copies. We've got another video, another training on that. So check out that training on how to get more reviews. That's a whole separate lesson in itself, but use that and implement it to get a minimum of 100 reviews on every format for your book. Number 6, discoverable keywords and categories. So there's a staggering stat that says that 70% of all books purchased are purchased on Amazon and other online retailers, right? And Amazon has hundreds of millions of buyers with their credit card on file. So the beautiful thing about this is, you get the Amazon one-click purchase. Well, they've aggregated customers for you and for your book. And you can use this search engine to sell a ton of copies, right? It's way easier to sell books when there's already customers there than to sell it on your own website where you have to bring the customers yourself. And now what we have to do though, is we got to figure out how to integrate into that ecosystem and get them to show your book to as many people as possible. So the first question that we want to ask is, what is Amazon's incentive? I love the Charlie Munger quote. He says, you show me the incentive, I'll tell you the outcome. Right? So what is their incentive? It's to sell more stuff. Well, then based on that, how are they going to orient their search engines? Well, they're probably going to show people books who have more reviews, who show up for the keywords that they're searching and solve the problem that they're searching for, and are in categories of the type of books that they like and that they're searching in. So now what we need to do is make sure that we maximize for that. So there's really 2 questions or maybe 3 that you want to ask here. Number 1 is, what are the keywords or phrases that people are searching when they're looking for the solution to the problem that I'm solving? And then I want to integrate that into obviously my book, my title, my subtitle, the content itself. That's the most important thing. But then also on the back end, when Amazon allows me to select some keywords to help my book show up, I want to make sure that I'm picking ones that people are actually searching. And then after the fact, I want to make sure that my book is showing up for those keywords by searching in Amazon and seeing myself. You need to look for that. Then secondly, you need to think about the categories that you're placing your book in. So depending on Amazon or the other marketplace, they might give you 1 or 2 or maybe a few more categories. The way I like to think about this is you want to put one of the categories be a big name category for discoverability, and then the other one being a smaller category that's relevant, that will be easier for you to get to the top of the charts on. Because if you can stay at the top of the charts with that book, well, then now all of a sudden you've got more discoverability, you've got more social proof, because this is number 1 in XYZ category. But that's how I like to think about picking categories. Thirdly, see above, right? You got to get more reviews, because what's Amazon going to show? They're going to show the book in search that has more reviews, because more reviews means more people buy it, read it. And so showing that higher up in search means you're more likely to make a purchase, which helps Amazon win. So think about discoverable keywords and categories to get your book in front of as many people as possible. Number 7, your book's available in all formats. So this is one of the biggest mistakes I see authors make. They don't make their book available in all formats. Well, if you don't, you're missing out on a lot of book sales. I know some people, like myself, I do not read Kindle books. So I read physical books and I listen to audiobooks. So if your book is only on Kindle, I'm not going to read it. Now, there's plenty of other people who don't read books at all. And if your book's not on audio, well, then they're not going to read it. So you need to publish your book in all 3 formats. And what's going to happen is you're going to not only sell multiple formats to people. Have you done that? I know I have. Where, okay, I read the physical book. Now let me get the audiobook. Right? So you're opening up repeat purchases, but also you're opening up discoverability and consumption to people who would have never purchased your book, right? And then lastly, you're opening yourself up to higher royalty rates. Because if you think about this, a physical book, that's your lowest royalty option. Ebooks are very high margin, right? And then you've got audiobooks though, also very high margin. So if you're not publishing on all formats, you're going to sell a whole lot less copies. You're going to impact less readers. There's less virality with the book, and you're violating one of the biggest fundamentals, which is not giving people an option to purchase in their preferred format. So there you have it. Those are the 7 fundamentals of a bestseller. Violate them at your own peril and utilize them to great benefit. So here's what I want you to do next. Okay, number 1, I want you to look at this list and say, if you've already published, what are the top 3 fundamentals that you have in your book already? Okay, so these are ones where you say, hey, I'm good here. This is good. Don't need to do anything more. Now, the second question I want you to ask, which is probably most important, is what are the bottom 3 fundamentals that you need to improve? So if you haven't launched yet, this is what you need to do when you launch. So you need to make sure that you nail these fundamentals. Or if you've already launched, maybe this is why your book didn't do well, right? You don't have reviews. So you need to go get 100 reviews on every format or whatever that fundamental is for you. So that's number 2. And then number 3, I want you to create an action plan. So what are the next steps and what are you implementing with your book to make sure that you're compliant with all 7 fundamentals? So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's 2 things that I want you to do right now. Number 1, what is the fundamental that stuck out to you most that you need to implement with your book? Comment below. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. I read and respond to every comment. And then number 2, we've got a bunch more advanced marketing videos on this channel. So click the link along with this video and check out our playlist. It's all of our best marketing stuff. If you're looking to market your book better and use your book to grow your business, you're in the right place. I'll see you in the next video.